in the merit of a very special woman who represents life to me. She helped me bring 3 of my children into the world, and she is full of life and joy. And her name is Chaya Golda Basar Gittel. And we are holding her very close in our hearts tonight with all of the force of Elul for change, for changing everything. And in fact, Parashat Shoftim goes into some detail. We're going to get there later tonight about how Mazal is secondary for the Jewish people, right? Because we are here to do whatever it is that we choose in co-creating. So what is this fancy title of co-creating your future with Hashem? There is a source. There is a lot of evidence in our tradition that we are actually active agents in whatever it is that the future holds. Now, we have a certain agreement that we've entered in coming into this world, that we're open to guidance from Hashem and direction in terms of what that actually looks like at the end of the day. But we can shape it in very powerful ways. So I know now that in the chat, we have a link that is a source for this evening, and perhaps we'll post it a few more times. So again, a very warm welcome to everyone. And I think we should get started. We have a lot to do in an hour, shall we? Okay, great. Out of respect for everyone who's come. So my name is Shoshana, and I have the great pleasure and privilege of being listened to by Mr. Jonathan Parker, who is here. I told him that it was very dear to my heart to share Torah, and that I wanted a place and a way to be able to do that. And he has so graciously allowed me to step into the adult education program at Shari Shamayim to teach. And this is my 2nd time doing it. And it is with great pleasure and also big kudos to, I want to say Chaya. It's not Chaya. Meital is the coordinator that made all of this possible. She did a lot of work in the background to organize this. Many, many thanks to her. So again, we're dedicating this evening's learning to 2 very special women. One of them is known as Sarah's Bubby. She is a woman who just went to Shamayim very recently at the age of 96, who was a light to so many people. And she is here that we should ask for an aliyah for her neshama to go very, very high. She was taken with a kiss in a beautiful way and had a me life. And lahavdil, on the other end of the spectrum, is the woman who we are thinking about tonight, who for me represents life and helped me bring my children into this world. And her name is Chaya Golda Basar Gittel, that she should be held in sweetness, in joy, in healing. Okay. Let's take a minute, please, and write something in the chat to say who you are. Say good evening, tell everybody happy Rosh Chodesh, whatever it is that you want to say to introduce yourself, your wishes, your desires for what the next hour can be, and how we can nourish you by being here with us and enlighten you and help one another to learn something.
Okay. How do I do it? You can't open the source sheet.
Oh, you can't open the source sheet? I'm going to repost the link. If you click on it, it should open for you on the web. I'm going to post it again in case you came a little bit after Jonathan, because there's 2 options. One is a link and the other is a PDF to download. Okay, I see people are a little bit quiet this evening. Maybe, oh, hi. I'm looking forward to starting off Elul on the right foot, in the right mindset. I find too often I get to the Yamim Noraim without preparing at all, so I'm hopeful this will get me set. Well, I don't want any false advertising. This is not going to get you set. It will get you thinking about what it is that you want to do and reflecting. And I am so glad to see some return people from last time around, especially Dr. Morris Moskovich. Thank you for joining us tonight. Adi says, looking to learn practical ways to connect with this special energy. Okay, so let's start there. For those of you who may or may not be aware, Chazal teach us that each month has a particular koach, has a particular energy, that every time of year has potential for everything, but certain times of year were created with certain types of opportunities being stronger than others. So in the source sheet, for those of you who can see it, I've highlighted several of them. One of them is that Elul is a time for change. It's a time that we can change a little bit more easily than the rest of the year. And Galit writes, hello, I'm Galit and my family and I just moved here from Vancouver. Shoshana, grace and I'm not reading that part. We're thrilled to be part of the community and I'm excited to hear Shoshana speak today. Okay. Welcome, so welcome. So the first source comes from a rabbi named Abu Sutton, who published an amazing book that I highly recommend called Days of Awe, Awesome Days, which is like a primer for the Chagim, starting from Elul, the first of Elul, all the way through to Yom Kippur, and past that to the end of the Yamim Noraim, and also through to the end of Simchat Torah. Now he says all the changes that we're looking for will not happen out there until they first happen inside. So tonight is about inside change. It's about reflecting on the inside, making certain decisions that we will manifest on the outside with God's help. And that's why it's called co-creating your future with Hashem. So the first thing that has to happen is we have to make a decision of such amplitude and such force that we're willing to embark on this journey called life, which starts now for next year, that decision itself will have an impelling force, which is the second source. That Elul is, and I quote, pregnant with an impelling force for tshuva that begins when we regret distancing ourselves and move closer. So distancing ourselves from what? What does it mean to be far? There's a lot of questions in that statement, right? Now, there's a famous thing we've heard many of us before, that Elul stands for Aleph Ani, Lamed Lidodi, Vav Ve, Daled, help me, Ani Lidodi, Vidodi Li. Yes, Vidodi is the third letter with the Vav, and Li is the end Lamed. So I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine from Shir Shirim. It is an ideal time to return to God. We use our love of God as an impelling force to regret our past errors and get that much closer to his light. But how do you do such a thing? What does that even mean? And hello to the Tzadikah who just came on, who's our youth section. All of us are in the youth section, by the way, but we have like a double youth section. So here's something. I'm not going to go in deep detail, but I really highly invite you to read this. So all of us can connect to God in a different way, regardless of how lost we may have been until now, on the basis that Hashem is involved in our lives at all times, but it is during Elul that we can become more intensely aware of this and utilize this closeness for powerful inner growth. Here is where I'm going to read every word. This is in source number 3. The fact that he is with us, irrespective of how aware we are or not. So the presence is there. The question is whether we're tuned in. Yes. And that is what we have power to do. What is in our hands is our ability to amplify our data, our meta-awareness of his closeness. And this is Rabbi Sutton again saying, I define meta-awareness as an enhanced level of awareness that allows me to know, at least retroactively, that Hashem is there with me even when I am unaware of it. This could be one of the deep lessons embedded in the verse, Vayedata hayom v'hashavota el avavecha, ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shamayim ma'al, v'al haaretz mitachat ein od. We say that how many times a week, how many times a day? If we say Aleinu at the end of the davening, we finish that we're supposed to know today and keep in mind that Hashem alone is God in heaven above, and on earth there's no other. Okay. So too many sources at one time. I want to stop with that. By saying that there is different levels of knowing, okay? And this is still within the source, but I'm not going to read every word. There's Hashem's presence in the heart. There's the meta-awareness of the infinite in the art or in the field. So we have, again, I'm reviewing. We can internalize and integrate our meta-awareness of Hashem's presence that comes in our heart. There's an awareness of the infinite that lives in our soul. And there's an awareness that lives in our personality, which is the maze of everyday existence where we forget, right? And Jonathan started this whole thing saying, I go, oops, it's Elul. Whoops, it's Rosh Hashanah. We're all caught up in this thing called life and this matrix of rushing around. And then once in a while I say, oh, wait a second, I'm a soul. Hold on a minute. There's a heart in me. And hopefully, as we work through life and as we continue to practice this thing called life, we can change the ratio of the amount of awareness we have, the amount of time we spend in awareness relative to the amount of time we spend just floating through by accident. That's the ideal, right? But during Elul, our hearts are kind of stirred to return to Hashem wholeheartedly because of his overwhelming love. So this is a time of year where something gets turned up. You know, when somebody cares about you, you naturally pay more attention. When you feel someone's love and concern for you, they draw you like a magnet. And there's this magnetism that's happening now where Hashem's love is getting turned up. And we're tuning in, even if we're very, very, very busy, we're tuning in. So, tuning in, I want to stop there. Speaking of tuning in, it's tempting to read the source sheet. It's tempting. I want to ask all of you, please, if you can comment in the chat, or you can come off of mute and say, is there an experience of Elul past, or do you want to create an experience of Elul right now, where you switch the degree of awareness you have to an invitation? Elul is like an invitation. There's an additional energy of love that is more accessible to us as an invitation to come closer. And somehow when we get stirred in our hearts, this happens on a level of meta-awareness, we can respond in different ways. So I just wonder, is there an ideal response that you would like to have this month that's different than any other Elul? And by the way, response can be practical ways. Response doesn't have to be ethereal. It could be very, very practical. And I'm so comfortable with silence. Because what's the invitation that you would like to respond to? And how might you respond to that invitation?
For me, the invitation that I always, I think, struggle with, I find Elul is a good conduit for my Ben Adam Lemakom relationship, that like between the shofar and then slichot, like that really strengthens that connection I have with God. But I think often for me at least, I struggle with the Ben Adam Lechavero, that bringing that same relationship I'm building with God and making and strengthening my relationship with other people. And I think that is an invitation I would like to accept more, is to improve in that way.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know that there are people here who can offer some ideas on that. I am here as a facilitator, not an expert. So I can offer you expertise from sources and I can facilitate, but I think there's a lot of wisdom in this room. How do you translate a meta awareness that comes not only to the mind, not only through the shofar that brings up Yirat Shamayim of, wow, okay, I'm awake, Hashem, I'm here. How can that filter down past our personality, which tends to kind of flow, mindlessly, to Ben Adam L'Chavero, so relationships from us to other people. Some ideas from the wise people here. Daniela, please.
I think you kind of touched upon it, that when somebody feels that somebody really cares about them, there's a magnetism, right? That they more open. So just having that wish to bring those people, this that awareness brings about a listening. I think a true listening where there is no calculation of what we're going to say next. Person says something. Most people already thinking, I don't know if I agree with this, or this is how I see it, or this is what I'm going to answer. But just to be there without an agenda, just being in that awareness, in that moment, truly listening, I think that will deepen that very much.
Thank you so much. And I know several people here very well. I think that I can think of many people who are on this call, and and even the people that I've had less interaction with, where they listen with their whole heart, and it changes the way that I can be with them. However, when you are with people who are not in that place, because they may be suffering, they may be distressed, they may be the people that make it more difficult to do those mitzvahs, we can also draw from our relationship with Hashem. So when you say, Mr. Parker, that your heart is open to Hashem and your brain is open and you're well aware of your relationship with God, that can help us to see the good points in other people, because there's divine in other people, clearly. Now, I met somebody once who was an advanced Mikubal and scholar in Jerusalem, and he explained to me that he spent 10 or 15 years in India before he became a very advanced Torah scholar. And I'm talking about someone who was Chavruta with the Rav of the Kotel kind of level. And he explained to me that it was fascinating for him that there are 70 names of the divine that are attributed to different aspects of Hashem, and that if you learn enough, you can see all of those in another person. There's all sorts of different angles and nuances to learning to see the divine in other people. So perhaps there isn't such a separation at the end of the day between one and the other. And we can know that even if we have a moment to pause and listen to another person and recognize the divine in them, just in our thoughts or in our heart, we may change the way they relate to us and to many people without us ever knowing. There's so much influence we have that we never know. Yeah, so that would be my comment on that. I am going to ask, the time is flying. So what I just spoke about has something to do with leadership. I don't know about your definition of leadership, and I am going to screen share this time. I seem to have forgotten that that's what I could do before. Let's see if I can correct things. Can you see this? Okay, great. I won't stay here forever because I prefer to see people's faces. And excuse the, yeah. So what we have in Parashat Shoftim is a phrase called Tamim Tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. And this is what Rashi has to say about it. Yitalech imo batmimut. Simplicity, perfection, there's different translations of that. But titzapelo, and wait for him, anticipate him. And by the way, that's one of our mitzvot that we're going to be asked when we go to Gan Eden. Did you wait? Did you have anticipation that God was there and that Mashiach was coming? It's one of very few questions we're going to be asked when we go to Shemayim, by the way. Velo tachakor achar ha'atidot ela kol ma sheyavo alecha kabel betmimut ve'az tiyeh imo ulechelko. If you walk with Hashem wholeheartedly, put your hope in him and do not attempt to investigate the future. But whatever it may be that comes upon you, accept it wholeheartedly. Then you shall be with him and become his portion. That doesn't sound very co-creation, does it? So let's just have a peek in here. How can you have this duality here? That this Rashi makes it sound like our only job is to accept passively and not worry about the future. However, if you walk before him wholeheartedly, that's a very active thing. Are you awake? Are you bringing your awareness into this meta-awareness where you're aware of your partnership, of the divine that's taking place all around you? Are you taking the time to practice that so that it's not a coincidence that this is the way you walk through life? Do you actually put time and attention into learning how to do that and practicing how to do that? And that decision has to do with taking leadership for yourselves and for ourselves. Shoftim. Everybody is a leader. Somebody leads their family, somebody leads the world. The scale is irrelevant, but the principles remain the same. A person who's a leader has to begin by leading their own life, devoting themselves toward their own personal greatness. And in addition to self-development, a leader must have, oh boy, lots of spelling mistakes. A leader must have a strong moral conviction, a genuine love of others, and a sensitivity to their needs. So here we go again. Right what Daniela and Jonathan brought to the fore here. That we have to actually have a desire to lead for a higher purpose. And part of that is seeing the greatness in ourselves and others. So I think there's something here about awareness that's very, very big in Shoftim and what you do with it, and in Elul also. Our task in Elul, writes Simcha ben Yosef, is to allow our soul to give forth its message, each in our own way. jumping as high as our energy permits. Elul then becomes the pregnancy of a new year filled with life and joy. So let's get practical, okay? Step 1. We have to release this energy or this impelling force that gets tied down from how we've been living. How do you do that? So largely unconsciously or not, there are certain compulsions, and this is not written here, but if you look at Tehillah 1, if Psalm number 1, it says to walk in the way of God, okay? But at first it starts and it says that the first thing that happens is we pause. We're walking, then we stop, then we sit down, and then we stay. We get tangled. It's like a vine that comes and wraps itself around a plant. And this is for my neighbors, because I didn't notice that there was a parasite growing around my plant. And it went like this, and it started not being able to grow straight. There are things that we do that hold us down. And that's just who we are. That's how we were made. So we're always working on the way to overcome those things. And it's part of our awareness also to say, oh, wow, I'm doing this thing that's actually creating distance between me and God. I have this habit. I have this way of being. I have this thing that happens every year where it's easier to listen to the shofar and be awake. People are more complicated, right? It's more complicated, but we can reclaim our will. So Ramchal speaks a lot about Akira Taratzon, reclaiming our will. I've given you the whole thing here, and it's long, but here's what I'm going to show you. The uprooting of the very will that prompted the deed can be considered an uprooting of the deed itself. So again, we're back to will and attention, aren't we? If we have a willingness to move forward, if we have a willingness to distance ourselves from whatever it is that holds us back, it can be considered uprooting the itself. But how is that possible? We have to use vidui eventually within this time. But for Rosh Chodesh Elul, we have this advantage that if we have this will that we should move forward and regret it sincerely, will depart and our errors will be atoned. So we start in Elul, by the way, it's 40 days from now until Yom Kippur. It's exactly the time that the second set of tablets, or the luchot, were created. And as I've taught in the past, not to this group, of course, when you arrive at Yom Kippur, it was Moshe Rabbeinu that prepared everything so that we get this absolute gift of atonement for free. It doesn't matter what you've done. If you stand in front of God on Yom Kippur, everything's gone. It also has an energy of wiping everything away. But it starts now. So the more we're invested in it, the more sustainable it is, the more we become a different person. And when we become a different person, the things that we did no longer apply. If we do something different about who we are, then whatever illness we're facing is no longer relevant to the new person. If we move beyond space and time in our attention, in our willingness to move ahead, in our commitment, we literally recreate ourselves. And that's again why this workshop is called co-creating, is because if we create a new self, whatever was there before doesn't stay attached because we're different. So this is not a class on vidui, so I'm not going to go into it in depth, but we have many, many opportunities. And it's a function of love and mercy and not of justice. So you can read that ahead. But I do want to read what Rabbi Sutton has to say about this. And this is the last thing we'll read before we do our practical reflections here. So may I please ask for somebody to come off of mute and read this? And I can make it bigger just because I need a little bit of a voice break. And I want to hear someone else's beautiful voice.
Okay, amen. I can read. What am I supposed to read?
What you see here, Judaism.
Okay.
That's what you
Judaism.
see on the screen.
Okay, Judaism, especially Kabbalah, sees the Ratzon, will, as the highest and most powerful component of the human psycho-spiritual makeup. Above, we mentioned that we are given a basic energy when we are born, as well as every day of our lives. When this every or soul potential is misused, or if it is not used at all, it dissipates. The more a person becomes entangled in the downward process of spiritual deterioration, the more he severs himself from his very life force while he's alive. Of course, this process is reversible. We must disentangle and reclaim our soul energy for the good. Only then can we free our will and thus free ourselves of any compulsions in which we may have gotten stuck. What is the opposite of bondage? What does it have to do with Hashem being king? It is the state of having our free will and in line with Hashem's will for us.
Yes, it is the state of having our free will free.
Oh, I missed
And
that
in
one.
line with Hashem, right? It's hard to
Yeah.
read that sentence. Thank you so much, Adi.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's regroup here for a minute. It's really important to regroup here for a minute because we're going to have some questions in a second. But I just want to, because Elul can be heavy, right? It can be very heavy to hear all this talk about, undoing these things that we're facing, and it can be very heavy. The fact of the matter is that anything with the potential to set us free is also going to contain a discussion about the ways in which we're not free or that we are trapped, right? Because we're talking here about having free will and a free will to create our future. So what does it actually mean by these sources? It means disinvesting in whatever it is that's kept us back from having those heights and those learnings and those progressions through to become a person who is moving through life and growing from one year to the next. So what does it mean to have a compulsion that we let go of? I want to give you an example of my own personal life, okay? I have made a decision that I need to be far more quick to stop something when I'm overtired. I need to recognize much earlier in the process and become more aware of when I need to stop and let it be enough, whatever I'm doing. Now, kudos to Daniela, who was here in my very new house. I am 36 hours in a new house, Baruch Hashem. And she was here and we got a phone call. I got a text or an email from the person who sold us the house because he left some garbage and raccoons got into it. So it's all over the place. And I said, you really have to clean it up. So I got a phone call or an email from him saying, okay, I'm sending over just junk. I was like, oh, it's amazing. I have junk. I need to get rid of it. So I went into super high gear, rushing back and forth and up and down as fast as I possibly could. And I just thought, okay, and I'm pushing everybody and I'm driving everybody to get it done. And I stopped and I said, okay, this is a gift that I have to drive results through. And it's also really exhausting. And I'm also pushing everybody around me. So I started checking in. Is it okay that we're pushing this hard? Because we have this like opportunity. And I got a maybe, a yes. And for me, it was like a heck yeah. So I kept going. But I could hurt a lot of people that way. I could hurt myself. I could hurt other people. And I could make God very, very small. Right? Because if I need to rely on the just junk people, and I don't rely on God's ability to make the junk go away, then I'm marching through life, not paying attention. I'm not aware. I am harming myself and other people. So that is my personal compulsion. that I am looking to change in a very significant way this year. Earlier awareness and redirecting my super momentum into finishing things so that everybody can be happy and healthy, or at least more than they would be last year. And I'm hoping that when I make that change and I really practice it, that God will come forward and say, thank you so much. I'm actually going to make this really easy for you because you are turning to me a little bit more. I'm going to show up in ways that you didn't let me show up before. That's my hope, my personal hope. So I just want to give you a context that that is the kind of level that we're working at now. We don't have to be using this workshop to go so deep into difficult things that we do that we don't see a way out of. It can be something as simple as a way that we are causing ourselves undue harm that can be shifted delicately, kindly, relatively easily. So let's stay in that kind of space. And I really want to stop just to collect ideas. And I'm looking at somebody on the camera who I know wrote an article about an experience that happened over the last few years that was life-changing, and how it may have shifted perspectives, but that's not a pressure statement. And I know there's many people on this call. Every single one of you has had an experience where you were able to let go of something that defined you and move into a different life that you might want to share.
Hi, I just wanted to mention the experience that I had. My name's Morris. I had a stroke this last year, and I don't know if I spent it. It wasn't out of an act of will. It was just out of my own personality, trying to accommodate myself to things that I have lost, and focus on what it was that I retained. And the way I talk about it is that we're all used to having a whole bar of chocolate when we buy a chocolate. And what I learned to do is to savor just a little square of chocolate and an entire bar. So that was sort of my mindful way of dealing with this new development after my stroke.
Thank you, Morris. So now you have this advantage that we all have, that it's Elul. And there's an invitation to go forward in a way that maybe magnifies what you learned. For example, all of us could now say, I'm going to focus on appreciation in order to improve my life. Or I'm going to resist the compulsion to create unhappiness for myself and other people by only thinking about what I can't have or what's no longer available to me. So that's a definite power that you have. Like that's a very strong thing that you did. And I'm quite convinced everybody is and can do that too. But it's a beautiful example. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I
just wanted to add one thing that I think maybe it was overlooked in what I just said. I don't think it's something I tried to do. I think there's something about my personality. My mother's personality was that way, that it came naturally to do that. I didn't do it through an act of will of saying, okay, I should focus on what I have and not worry about what I don't have. It just was something that comes out. So I don't know how much we can do I'm sure we can do lots through training by saying if in fact you are focusing on the negative, then you need some training to try to focus on positive things. But for me, it wasn't a matter of training. It just came as naturally as talking.
Okay, so the rest of us are not as high level as you. I think I have a lot of work to do on that front, and I'm so glad it came naturally to you, but it's still a great example. Still a great example. I can't imagine that my life wouldn't be better if I wasn't able to focus on something or savor what I have. It's just beautiful. It's for all of us to really
No, thank you.
aspire toward. Thank you. So let me post these questions, okay? To think about this. So let's go back to leadership for a second. Whatever we're envisioning for the future, whatever we're thinking about, wanting so much, can we ask if our ratzon, if our will is in line with what we believe or what we are aware of that we're being guided toward? So if we practice a meta awareness, if we practice trying to sense and see and understand God the way our brains work, the way our experience tells us, for some people it will be highly intellectual, for other people it may be intuitive. It will be so different, depending on the strengths and talents and experiences we've been given. Can we be asking this question? Is my vision for myself aligned with the greatest good of the people I am responsible for leading, including myself? And what is one concrete outcome that I can work toward that will help me live this vision? Is there something I can do every day that will help me reach the goal or the way of being? So let's say I have a lofty idea that I want to savor what I have more and enjoy it more. Just enjoy what I have much more. What behavior would help me reach that goal? And what outcome would I work toward? I would certainly be happier, for sure. And is that in line with the greatest good? I think so. I believe that, right? If I'm paying attention to what I've been given and enjoying it as much as possible. And what would I do to put that in place? How would I check myself so that I didn't miss it? Would I have a gratitude buddy? Would I talk to somebody on this call and say, that's what I want to do? So I was just wondering if we might share what it is that we're trying to do. And Mr. Parker, I would like to do a time check. Do we have 10 minutes to go into a breakout room? Do you have access to breakout rooms?
We will find out.
Because I do not right now. I'm not host. But I think it's easier to talk about these questions with somebody or with two people rather than in a big group. And then we can just share highlights with each other. What do you think?
I'm going to make you the host because it's been a long time since I had to moderate anything on Zoom. We use Google Meet at school. So I'm just going to make you the host and you can do it every you like.
So would everybody please copy this from the chat? If you can just copy these questions so you can take them with you into the breakout rooms, which I've just received, I think. Let's see. I have captions, record chat. I do not see breakout rooms here.
Oh, good. So it's not me. Great. I feel marginally better.
Can you post those questions again? Because I don't have access to being able to print it. I'd just like to read it again. those
Oh,
questions?
do you have chat, Claire? I just posted them in the chat.
You know what? I'm on my phone. Let me see if I can. Oh, yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So here's the scoop. I would love you to feel so comfortable and cozy with one other person, but it's not meant to be. So I guess we're really giving priority to people who are more comfortable sharing, and I apologize for that. But perhaps you could give a private message to me and I could read it anonymously for everybody. If you have something, I'm going to put this back on the screen. Am I? Yes, I am, definitely. Okay. Can you see that there? So I am just here to listen and have you share with one another. If there's something in particular that you have discovered that you would like to be doing, and that would be a behavior you would want to do this year, even Elul now to already change who you are in the next month, something that you could be doing, something that you might want to give a try to that's not too difficult, but is going to give you some traction. Please feel free to write in the chat or to come off of your off of mute onto your microphone. I see people typing. It's wonderful. And by the way, you can answer any one of these. It doesn't matter. My goal for tonight was to have people think and start on this road, right? Not to let Elul happen to them, but to make Elul happen for them. That's my goal for tonight. Okay, we're going to take another minute just to let you wrap up your thoughts for now. And I will give you that quiet time. Is it okay if I take the screen share off so we can see one another? Or do you need the question still? Just come on off of mute to let me know if you want me to keep the questions up any longer, whether it's okay. Somebody need them? Okay, there are some people who, well, Toby made a beautiful message here. Two of them, and I also got a number of direct messages. Okay. Toby, do you wanna come on and mention this, or would you like me to read it? I want to make sure people see and hear what you said. If you feel like it. Hi.
Either way, hi, Shoshana. I'm so sorry that I missed the actual lesson, but I thought it started at 8:30 and my phone was dead. So
You're just in time. You're just in time. Tell us what you are thinking about.
well, it's what I wrote. It's basically all there. I'll just read it. I would like to start giving over teaching, but I like to think of it as giving over the Chassidus and other Torah that I learned to others. This will definitely give me the opportunity to co-create with Hashem, uplift myself, my family, and those who would want to listen. I can hold a class at home or online and even make it in the schus of a healing for Adel Sarah Chaya Bas Tova. So my daughter, I can regularly review and summarize the notes that I take from my classes. And if only I could do that, the rest would come easily.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And isn't it an ultimate courage? I mean, look at the chutzpah that I'm here teaching, right? Like, why? Except that Hashem planted in me a yearning to share something. I want to make sure that whatever I know lifts other people and lifts me. I think that's very important, that we all have something to give. And if it's a look in our eyes, if it's a listening moment, if it's actual academic knowledge or Torah knowledge, all the better. Not all the better. It's just that we have all of those options. We have so many different ways. So I hear from other people focusing on really listening to the other person. I got that what can enable me to savor life is love and support of family and friends that turns despair into hope. And likewise, we can offer that hope and support to others to turn despair into hope. Understanding that our vision, what it is, and understanding my vision so that I walk around aware that my greatest good and my vision are infinite. So that's about having an awareness that I'm not limited, right? And there is one way to wrap up this class, which is to say that I'm open to any comments. I would really like any of you who've heard something that you want to inspire or give hope to somebody else, or give simcha to somebody else, or give knowledge. Everything has currency here. Anything that's coming from your heart and your being and who you are And I want to just acknowledge that it's courageous to come and learn about Elul because it can be so heavy. But I want it to be a celebration that we're here. You've all showed up to do whatever it is that you do and bring your best selves to improve me, my life. And I'm carrying the things that you've taught me tonight into a new year. So you're already helping me to be a new person. And I want to just give us a chance to do that for one another. So if anybody has any words of inspiration or even a blessing for the new year, let's go. Let's go in the few minutes, because I do want to be respectful that I said an hour-ish. And I think ish really means we have time to give each other blessings or thoughts or whatever. Any closing comments?
I want to express appreciation for your heightening our awareness of how much more is possible for us.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to underscore something we tell our kids all the time, but we often forget ourselves, which is that it's about progress, not perfection, right? And sometimes the mistakes we make along the way, Hashem understands, and we don't yet understand that it's necessary to make those mistakes to grow from that experience. So I guess what I would say in shortness is let's be kind to ourselves as we grow towards perfection.
Thank you. And you all made this a safe and welcoming place to do this. I feel like we're jumping over the hard part. We kind of have already done the it's happening thing here tonight. So we're done. Let's go. We already did that. Let's just go. Have a good time. Make it work.
I'd like to say something just
Yes,
to give
please.
a blessing that we should all reach and have a stronger connection of bitachon, that whatever we're going through personally and as a society and as a people, that there is, the Almighty is here with us. Ein od milvado, there's nothing but Him. And even though it seems sometimes as if the forces of good and evil are really fighting each other, we're not sure, we don't know if evil is going to take over. It seems like that sometimes, that really it brings out the best in us. And we have to, first of all, be gratitude for every goodness that we still see and that we still have, connect with each other and really go into this without fear, because there's a purpose for it. And we are really entering the time, as many people see it, as we're in the footsteps, we're in the birthing process of the Mashiach, even though now things seem very hard, and they will likely get even harder, that really there is an ultimate goal, which is to, I mean, it sounds so lofty, but to, have a redeemed world. And the only way to do this is for us to connect with the Almighty in this whole process, and to connect with each other, and not to be afraid, and not to be swallowed in the fear that's going around us, to bring our whole selves to whatever is going on, to continue to do that, to be a light to ourselves and to each other.
Amen. Kenya Ratson.
Yeah. So
Beautiful. Daniela, did you want to say something?
No, I was going like, yes, absolutely, everything
Oh,
you're saying. Yeah.
I thought you wanted to jump in and say something. I also have something to add, if I may. Yeah, I'm already enacting my co-creating goal. I was just reminded of, I mean, I don't know if you spoke about tshuva per se, but in those really difficult moments where, and I'm not saying that, I mean, I do have them, like, when you are down and you can't think about connecting to Hashem, but to remember that, in those states of mind, you're conscience stricken, and that if you can find your way out of it, even for a moment, even for a short time, wonderful things can happen. And that the idea of tshuva is a gift that Hashem has given us, that was planted into the creation of the world. And what really I find very heartening, very helpful to remember, is that it says in the Gemara that yesh konod olamel b'sha'achat. That means that, you know, even if you haven't lived a good life, or you have struggled to be able to live a good life, and many of us beat ourselves up over, you know, mistakes that we've made and errors, and whether deliberate or not. I find it very consoling and comforting to know that according to the Torah, you know, we can actually be considered a tzaddik even for a moment. And in that moment where you have those thoughts of wanting to be close to Hashem, you can actually be considered as being good, and being, you know, good in Hashem's eyes, and therefore you don't have to think of yourself critically, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to constantly be somebody who's, you know, on this higher level consciousness, that even if you do it sporadically for short bursts of time, that's also a wonderful thing. I hope I made sense.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is very important, which is that everything is a skill that takes practice. And as we're building, like obviously the goal is to be in God's awareness, which is why people used to wear tefillin all day, right? You know that in the times of the Nevi'im, people wore their tefillin, the men, all day long, because they were at a level where they could be at heightened awareness of God's presence all the time. And it's generally understood that that doesn't happen anymore today. But I'm sure that we can do that. I'm sure that each person who tries can do that. And until we do, what you said, Toby, is so, so important. That it just takes a moment. We don't have to be there all the time. Just to put that in perspective, by the way, when I started meditating, I was told that the Dalai Lama says that he has, if he's lucky, 6 good breaths a day. And he's pretty good at meditating. So I'm just thinking, like, if he can do that, then we could probably have fleeting awareness of Hashem, and it could add up to a pretty good life. And we could just keep building.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there somebody else? I want to be respectful of time. I personally, we have Carol who's clapping. I love that. I don't know what to say about time. Mr. Parker, can you comment, please?
Are welcome to go for as long as people would like to continue the conversation. I don't think that the shul needs the Zoom link, to my knowledge.
Okay. You may regret saying that, just kidding, but we won't hold you to it, really. I just wonder if, Sandy, I'm gonna just ask you a question. One of the people that we dedicated tonight to was your mom, Eti Alei V'Shalom. And I just want to say that I don't know very much about her, but I did hear about a very beautiful depth of relationship that she had with the people in her lives, in her life. And I wonder if you might want to comment on something that was inspirational about her. And of course, it's not fair what I'm doing because I don't even know if you're really there at the moment. Are you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm here. Is it okay if I don't come on camera yet? Yeah, thank you again so much. Thank you for dedicating to her. That's so kind of you. It's like I can't even pinpoint one thing. She lived to 96 and a half and just selfless. Her whole life was for her family. I don't even know where to begin or where to end. Just that's why you met my daughter, and to her baby was everything, and she's just the most selfless woman I ever met, and would do absolutely anything for her family. She had 4 daughters and a bunch of grandkids, and she's just a really special person to me.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
if we wanted to follow in her footsteps and do something special in the world and make it very practical this year, it's not an easy question. Is there something that she did constantly that lit up the people that she was with, or did something that really changed her environment? Something we can
It
think from?
was just really always just putting other people first, just always thinking of somebody else, and not talking, but not saying that she'd never say that she did it. Like, it was always in subtle ways, and she'd never brag about it. She just, selfless. She would never tell you that, but that was her way of being. She would do for other people, and was very humble about it. That's all I can really.
So to do it for the sake of whatever we can do for other people, may it be without having to, I don't know, can somebody else help me? How that could be applied in their own life? Or a different idea. I'm just really grateful you shared that, Sandy.
Thank you. Thanks, Rusty.
Hi, there's something that I'm getting at of this. It's like the focus on Elul being about, like, it's about introspection and growth and like becoming better, but it's also about I really like how we're talking about not beating ourselves up and seeing our assets, like not only our defects, but our assets too, and recognizing those and working on those, and like what I've learned that what you focus on grows, right? So if I start focusing on my defects because I want to work on them, in effect, I'm giving energy to my defects and making them grow in some ways. If I can say, okay, I've got these defects or these challenges, but I've also got these assets, and these are the things that are positive in me. If I focus on those things, then those things are going to grow. And by those things growing, the defects will diminish. So I really like this approach to Elul that's not just about like tshuva and tshuva and tshuva and fixing, and like it almost becomes like a beating up yourself fest, which is not really what I think Elul is about, but that's often what I hear in a lot of classes. It's like, do tshuva and do, change things and look at all the things you mistakes, and now we've only got like so many days before, but that's, I don't know, it just doesn't sit with me. And I'm thinking that I really believe that like the way to do it is to focus on improving, but not in a, somebody told me, put down the whip and pick up the feather, like, when you're feather dusting, if you start going with like, a hammer, then yeah, but you're not gonna like really, be productive, you may get the dust off, but you're creating all kinds of havoc in the process. So to me, that's that's something that that I have to work on in my awareness through Elul.
Thank you, Adi. You got a thumbs up from Morris, and I want to tie a couple of things together for a minute. When we spoke on Rosh Chodesh Iyar, when we had our class together, Mr. Parker asked me a question about the role of trauma in defining how it is that we think about health in Judaism, that we come from a history of trauma. And I want to say that when I was researching Elul and when I was researching Bidui in the past for classes, I kid you not, there are a number of sources that literally talk about self-flagellation, that talk about, crying and weeping over our defects and like really intensive self-loathing and all of those things. And let's be honest, that had its place in history. In the Middle Ages, we weren't really aware of positive psychology yet. We didn't understand that we could have these positive things that came out of a growth mindset. And never mind positive psychology. What about the Torah sources, right? What about what Hasidut did for us to understand the importance of self-reflection, of hitbodedut, of talking to ourselves, of having conversations with God, having personal, like we've gone through a revolution in terms of the societal focus in Torah, in the Torah world, and also in the secular world. So I'm going to bring it back and suggest that if you see a way that you can actually change and free your free will, right? That was the thing that you got tripped up on, Adi, when you were reading it out loud. Because what do you mean free your free will? That's doesn't even make sense in English. It's literally asking us, if you want to have the maximal impact during Elul, do a little bit of detective work and see where you are your own worst enemy, where you trip yourself up and prevent yourself from really being free. And just let yourself have that impelling force toward growth, to feel Hashem's love, to feel all this goodness that's around us. We have to release ourselves from whatever bonds, our behaviors, our habits, our ways of understanding things. Just find one. Just find one, and there is a natural momentum that will go. It's like, imagine that there's a car that's on a hill rolling downward, which has brakes that function, by the way. We're not talking about a crash here. That's tied by a string. And if you figure out what the string is, the car will naturally go downhill and pick up speed, and you'll be on your way. So everyone can think about this and reflect on this after we leave each other today. What is something I can do to just change a way of being that holds me back through habit from really enjoying the magnitude of love and life-giving that Hashem has in store for me this year? And I really thank all of you so much for being here and for participating in ways that were personal and also open. It was a time of a lot of reflection, and some of you did that by being quiet, and others did it by sharing, depending on who we are. But everybody contributed such valuable. It was very valuable to have each and every one of you changed what it was and what it could have been. And Morris is wishing us Shana Tova U'Metuka, and good health and happiness. And of course, we can all do that for each other. So I just want to wish all of us a sweet, sweet new year, and may we be renewed starting now. And may we learn a little bit more after tonight about what it is we can do to be the masters together with Hashem of our own future.
Thank you very much, Shoshana, and thank you very much also to everybody for attending. This was really lovely, so thank you.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Chodesh Tov. Chodesh Tov.